gonna have to go to her and be
See,
like,
I'm like, these are my
and
notes.
these are mine. So like we're on different pages.
Because we kind of, you start and then we shift and things go.
Yeah. Let me try to recap real fast.
Okay.
Recorder. I'll send this to you guys afterwards.
Step
Okay?
it, and then we'll tell you when we need you to go
Yeah.
back and clarify a step.
Okay. This is what you get for being the only ones in class today.
I love it.
I like it though. This is called like, useful information.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we're working with a buyer. One of the questions that we ask the buyer is, have you visited with a lender? That's a better way of saying, are you pre-approved, right? Are you pre-approved? It sounds like I don't really think you're pre-approved. So prove to me that you're pre-approved. If you're asking a generalized question, you might even ask the question. I think Pam posted it yesterday in the chat. That was like, so will you be using cash, or will you be obtaining financing?
I like that one too.
Right. So then they say, ooh, this person thinks I might be able to afford this place with cash. I like this person. They're pretty complimentary.
I like that.
Right. So, sir, will you be using cash or will you be obtaining financing? We're going to be obtaining financing. Great. Have you already visited with a mortgage specialist, or would you like me to make a recommendation or introduce you to several? Okay.
And then, so sorry, interrupt real fast. So the other day I heard somebody taking a call and they were like, yeah, I've got this bank that I bank with. And they then broke it down to be like, okay, so, banks can do this, but then you've got mortgage lenders, and then you have mortgage brokers.
The truth of the matter is a lot of people use those words interchangeably.
Okay.
Here's the difference between a banker and a broker. If you go into, let's say, Wells Fargo, first of all, there's no incentive for you. Like I have checking accounts and savings accounts at Wells Fargo, right? But I don't get any special privileges because I've got accounts there. So some people are like, oh, well, I can just ask the clerk at the bank I usually go to. There's no advantage to that, okay? In my rule of thumb is the bigger the entity, the shittier the service.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a clue. If the person's contact number has a 7-digit extension number and they're not in your time zone, it's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to deal with somebody local, ideally. Now it's a fine line you have to walk with a buyer who has a relationship with somebody else, right? Yeah. And we'll get to that here in a second. But the idea is, have you visited with a loan officer or mortgage specialist or something like that? Oh, bank. I'm sorry, I am all over the place. Good thing we're recording this. Okay. When you walk into Wells Fargo, they're going to go and write you a loan, and they're going to do it all in-house. It's going to be their pricing that day, and that's it. If you go into Kathy, she's a broker. So she's going to go into the market at large and say, hey, this is the type of loan I'm looking for, and a bunch of options are going to be available, and she's going to grab the one that happens to be the best match on that day.
So they shop the market, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So now we are finding out whether the person has spoken to a loan officer. Okay, you can let them know, hey, there's no fee for this conversation. There's no obligation that you work with these people. It's simply a learning opportunity for you.
And it doesn't impact their credit or anything, right?
Sometimes I mean, if they are, good question. It is counted as a soft pull, and they can have multiple soft pulls within like a month without any damage. But it's not necessary at this stage to go get 10 quotes.
Okay. So, but if you get a mortgage broker and they shop around, that multiple shopping it's not.
No.
Okay. That's what I wanted to ask.
Yes. Okay. So the lender or the mortgage specialist, whatever you want to, loan officer, whatever you want to call them, is going to, they're going to encourage the person to do a loan application. A loan application is going to be things like, social security number, address, employment information, credit score, permission to pull credit score. It's going to show whether you have any outstanding debts, car loan, student loan, credit card bills, all that kind of stuff. And it's also going to show your history of making payments, right? So the question is not like, if I have debt, it's a problem. They're not judging you on, do you use debt? They're judging you on, how do you handle the debt that you've used, right? So do you have a propensity to pay on time and to be responsible when others have loaned you money, right? If you prove not to appear to care at all about meeting deadlines for payments and stuff, then they consider you to be higher risk, and they will make one of two decisions, which is to flat out deny you, or to charge you a premium to take on what they determine to be a higher risk, which in this case would be a higher interest rate, right? Okay. We want a loan worksheet from the lender because we want to try to figure out what are the costs associated with obtaining this financing. Okay. So I want you to think of, let's look in two different departments. There's two different kind of closing costs, if you will. Okay. The first is what it costs to buy the home. Okay. So in general, this is what it costs to buy the home. They're going to have to pull the title. So title search, title insurance. Okay. The attorney's time, right? And some, document preparation fees and recording fees and stuff like that. So it's not, it's not that much. You're probably less than $2,000, $1,500, $2,000, maybe even a little less, depending on how expensive the home is. That's the cost of buying the home. The majority of the costs are with respect to financing the home. Meaning, if you are a cash buyer, your closing costs aren't going to be that much, right? You're going to buy title insurance. You're going to pull the title, search for the title, buy title insurance, pay any recording fees, pay for the attorney's time, and that's basically it. Okay. If you're obtaining financing, that's where you have to establish the escrow accounts, or oftentimes you establish the escrow accounts, right? And now you have to pay for the lender, right? And you also need lender's title insurance, right? Obviously, if you're buying a home for cash, you don't need, there's owner's title insurance and lender's title insurance. If you're buying a home for cash, you don't need lenders because there's no lender, right? You just get owner's insurance, owner's title insurance. Okay. So if we look at a loan worksheet, it basically spells out an itemized list of those closing costs. So for example, a closing cost for a that you might see, or let me back up. There are really, even the term closing costs is misused a lot. Okay. I want you to think about it like this. What I think of closing cost is everything you're going to expect from me at closing. Okay. When you see it on a loan worksheet, sometimes it has closing cost is one number, and that's often the financing charges. And then you have something else that's called escrow. And escrow is basically putting all of the appropriate amount of money into the escrow account so that there's an appropriate amount of money there when escrow fees are due. So do you guys know what escrow is?
Yes.
Okay. So generally, depending on what time of year you buy, the escrow accounts will be, it will depend on how many months of payments you need. So for example, if you were to buy now, you're probably going to need usually 2 to 3 months cushion, plus however many months it's been since the tax bill was due, essentially. So let's say you buy the home today, and the closing or the tax bill is due in November. Okay. So if I buy the home on February 12th, my first mortgage payment will be due April 1st. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, if I make my payment for those 7 months, I've only paid 7/12 of the tax bill on a monthly basis. It's summed up, 1/12 one month, 1/12 another month, 1/12 the next month, right? So by the time the tax bill comes, there's only 7/12 of the amount estimated in the account. So in order for that to work out, I need to make an initial deposit of what they're probably going to want is around 5 months, so that is combined with the 7 months that keep coming in. And when the bill is due, there'll be enough money to pay it.
So this is included all in like that loan estimate they're giving you.
Should be. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So
Um,
like when it's 250,000, it's not a $250,000 house. It's
It depends, like what he was saying is,
Repeat that last part. I'm not sure that I understood what you're saying.
so like if they're pre-qualified for a $250,000 house, you have to take all this into account of that being up to that 250,000 if they can't afford any more as like a down payment.
It's probably not that's not the cleanest way to think about it. Let me see if I can find one really fast.
so basically it comes in two categories. Either they're pre-approved or pre-qualified for the purchase of up to a $250,000 home, or they're pre-approved or pre-qualified to borrow up to $250,000. Period.
Yes, yes.
And so
Okay.
I guess it depends on the entity and how they choose to explain.
Yeah, more often than not, it's the sales price.
It's sales price.
But I would just have that in the back of my mind. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you and just try to walk you through some of this. Okay, so I shared this with I have a little rental in Sandy Springs that I was attempting to offer to my tenant to purchase. Okay. So we had Kathy run these numbers. Okay. We were looking at $120,000 sales price. Okay. The interest rate that she was quoted was 3.6. She was going to do a 3% down payment. You can go as low as 3% in certain circumstances with conventional. It's pretty rare. They have to meet some pretty tight income restrictions, but is my estimation she probably meets them. And so we ran it as a 3% down conventional loan. So meanwhile, she would have a loan amount of $116,400. See that?
Mhm.
Okay. And her loan to value, LTV, sometimes you see it that way, LTV is 97%. Okay. Here are we estimating our prepaids and escrows. That's what we were just talking about. So when she ran this report, they would have wanted 6 months of a tax bill at $53 and change. This is a little tiny place, right? $53 and change per month, and that's a total of $322 and change. They wanted 3 months of homeowners insurance collected for $120. They wanted 1 year. They generally take 1 month, or I'm sorry, 1 year of homeowners associate. Oh my gosh, I'm everywhere today. Sorry. 1 year of homeowners insurance is collected at closing. Then they also will collect a couple of months of cushion, which in this scenario is 3 months. So they're fully collecting the first year's payment of homeowners insurance. And this was having her close on the last day of the month. So there would be 1 day of prepaid interest. So all told, that was $920. Okay, do you want me to print this off for you guys?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna put it in my notes electronically, but yes.
Okay, so let's
Oh,
move
girl,
over to
I'll
this
take
other
a print.
side.
She wants printout.
Okay.
I'll lose the printout.
Or you
Um,
can email it to me. It'd be great. Either way. Thank you.
Old, shut up. You're better than most people I know.
so,
Ah, look at that.
hang on.
Failed.
Hell.
We'll get it later.
Okay, don't let me forget.
I won't.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the monthly payment. Okay, so this is an example of what a loan would look like. So first mortgage would be $530.84. We're going to estimate that we're going to collect $40 a month for homeowners insurance, $53 a month for property taxes. It's not for floodplains, so we're not going to collect any flood insurance. Mortgage insurance is applicable because generally if they put down less than 20%. It's called PMI, private
Yeah, I know what
mortgage
that is.
insurance. Okay. And then there's HOA fees. Generally, they wouldn't put this in here. She went ahead and put it in here. But because HOA fees is not collected officially as part of the payment. Generally, they're going to write a payment, or they're going to have a payment, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And then they're also going to have a HOA fee that's paid directly to the HOA, not through the lender. if that makes sense. Okay, so we were trying to estimate, we were trying to show her, hey, if you do this, you could spend less than I'm charging you in rent, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So her total payment, including the HOA fees, was $968. Okay, now we got to look at some closing costs. All right. So closing costs, there's origination fee that was actually zero, discount fee. Basically, all of these things pay an appraisal fee, a credit report, a flood cert, tax service fee, condo doc fee, other lender charges, all that totals to $2,283. Then you have the deed recording fee, the Georgia, every time there's a loan taken out in Georgia, there's a $10 fee, intangibles tax, recording fees, state tax stamps, all that's $529. Okay. There's a closing protection letter, settlement fees, title insurance. This stuff right here is basically what the lender is charging, right? Title and closing attorney charges, $1,700. Okay, so to pay the lender, you got that number. To pay the state, you got that number, and to pay the attorney to deal with all this, it's that number.
Okay.
All that adds up to $4,500. So sometimes people will say, these are your closing costs. And while that is true, they're also responsible for this number. So I would suggest that when I refer to closing costs, I'm referring to these two numbers together. Okay. And that's basically what they did here is they said your down payment is $3,600. Then your total prepaids and escrows is $920. And then your closing cost is $4,500. Bless you. That's a total of $9,041. There's a little lender credit in there for $100 or so. And then, so total due at closing would be 8,880. So let's just say that you were my buyer and this was your loan worksheet, right? I would say, Greta, thank you so much. I mean, guys, if you haven't got a mortgage in a while, it's pretty intrusive. Like you're gonna wonder if they're coming in for like a urine sample, right? I mean, it's pretty intrusive, right? So you want to brace your buyer like for that. Hey, and here's the reason why, by the way. Okay, you are bringing $3,600 to the table. The lender is bringing $116,400 to the table. They're bringing 30 times more money than you. So think about all the stress and due diligence you want to do. Don't be surprised if the person that's taking on 30 times the amount of risk also wants to do a little research. Follow that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, by the way, they're looking at your credit score and, you know, making sure that your bank account looks sharp and that you have a history of handling your debts, you know, properly in the past, right? So where was I headed? Oh, so I'd say, now the lender, Greta, said that you are able to do $120,000 purchase, okay? And that would be on a 3% down conventional loan, and that would have a monthly payment, including HOA fees, of $968. Greta, how do you feel about that? And you'd say, oh, that's within reach. Say, great. Then we should stay below 120. Okay. Now,
And that's with that being the payment.
968. But although that does include the HOA fees.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the 968, are they okay with that being it? Okay.
Yeah. And then you would say, now with this type of loan, we're looking at you bringing $8,880 to the closing table. Are you prepared to do that? Right? At which point they'll say, well, I only have $4,000. Say, great. So we got to come up with the 4,800 some other way. Right? So they're barely able to get their down payment in order. They don't have any more money for closing costs, which means that when we go and present an offer to a prospective seller, we have to ask the seller to pay some of these fees because they got to get paid. Right? Now, this is what I was alluding to earlier, where it's a little tougher as a first-time home buyer right now. I don't necessarily mean first-time home buyer. I mean people that you know, are not like, how do I want to say this? In my personal opinion, if all you have is $4,000, you shouldn't be buying a house.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you're rolling quarters to come up with your down payment and your down payment's only 3%, what are you going to do when the stove breaks or the water heater breaks or such and such, right?
So can I ask a question really fast?
Yeah.
So say you're putting, I don't know, I feel like when we bought our house, I feel like they almost took that money out of our down payment, like the lender.
So
Escrow check
think of
applied.
it. So you got a couple of things which I think you might be alluding to. Let's just say that we were under contract and the seller was contributing no dollars to closing costs.
Yeah.
Okay, $0. They would expect a total of $8,880 from
Mhm.
you at closing, assuming that this number was perfectly accurate. And then they would look for your credits. Your credit would be your earnest money. So if you would put down, let's say, $2,000 earnest money, they would take that, and then they would only need another 6,800.
Okay. Okay.
I'm assuming that's what you're referring to,
Yeah.
if I was to take a guess. Okay, now, what
Been more than my husband.
so there's a couple of things you got to understand here. One is, if you are a buyer and you just flat out don't have the money that's required to close, then you're putting yourself in a situation where you are essentially asking the seller to solve your problem. And in this type of environment, the seller, if they're in receipt of multiple offers, may not be asked by all of the people to solve that problem, right? Meaning, if I'm a buyer and I need closing costs, and Greta's a buyer and she does not need closing costs, there's a good chance that the seller would be better off working with Greta, right? Now, so what do? You either find the money somewhere, right? Or you ask the seller to pay the closing cost. Or there's also something that can be done where you would go back to Kathy and say, hey, what if you ran the numbers at 3.875% interest rate, and therefore you were able to lower the closing cost or give me more of a loan credit, which will lower the closing cost. So if you're willing to take a slightly higher interest rate, you can offset the closing cost. Now, it may not make financial sense in the long term, but sometimes the point is getting the home, right? And plus you could, refinance a little bit later. So if you were to take a higher interest rate, now you have to afford a larger payment, right? So you're borrowing the same amount of money at a higher rate, which means it's going to be a bigger payment, which means that the debt to income ratios and all of that need to check out. You guys know what debt to income ratios are?
I don't.
Debt to income ratio would be if they pull your credit, and basically what they're trying to determine is how much of Greta's income is essentially already spoken for.
It's like, do you have a car payment? Like, what's your utility bill? It looks at
Right.
that. It has to be a certain percentage.
Okay.
So let's say I make $4,000 a month and I'm paying $1,100 to Amex, and I'm paying, $800 to my student loan place, and I have, minimum credit card bills, minimum payments of like $600 a month, and I want to borrow, money that's going to require a payment of $2,500 a month. They're not going to give me that loan. Right. So they want the debt to income ratio for housing expenses. So the function of your housing cost versus your total income to be around a third maximum. Okay. Then they want your house payment plus all of your other debts, right? All of your revolving debts, typically to be no more than like 50, and sometimes they can go up as high as about 55% of your total income. Right.
So I'm going to ask you a really quick question, because I've got a prospective client who I know they're buying in the next 6 months. They're selling their house and buying in the next 6 months. They're not married yet. They're engaged. They'll be buying the house together. I haven't asked yet whether they're buying under his name, both their name. I haven't asked that yet. They're going car shopping this weekend.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
If she buys a new car, that's going to hurt her
Hurt
for the house in like the next 6 months, right?
The definition of hurt is probably a little, it depends, right? It's like, it's all relative to what they earn and what it costs to live, right? If you're asking, it will diminish their purchasing power if she's involved in the purchase.
Okay.
Okay. What I mean by that is if she's going to now have a, I don't know, let's say a $300 a month car payment, that is going to be less money that she or the two of them together could borrow on the house. So they should probably be aware of that.
I know she's a partner in a law firm, so I know they give her a certain stipend a month, but now I know they want her to drive a nice car. So now I know she's looking at cars that are like $1,000 a month, a car payment. So I want to make sure like that she understands, like, to maybe
Yeah, that's
be
going to
more
be
conservative.
that's going to be significant, right? So now it
Even
also
with that
depends, right,
stipend, how do they look at that?
It's part of her income.
that's
Yeah.
that's a question for the lender.
Okay.
So really, there's so many nuances there. Like it could be in the company's name. Like, is the company going to take out the lease or whatever? If that's the case, it's probably not going to make a bit of difference, right? But if she is going to have to if she's going to have to make the payment, and then the company's going to write her a check for, let's say, I don't know, $800 a month or something, then that's really hairy, because you need to determine, is the $800 a month considered income, and is there something in writing that says that's guaranteed? Because you're introducing a lot of different complexities there. And honestly, some lenders, or meaning some people that might get the loan shopped to them, will treat that differently. So in certain circumstances, Kathy, let's say, is going to ask a bunch of questions to try to figure out which of her partners is the best fit for that person's profile.
Okay. I just want to be able to, like, because I know that they're definitely going to be doing this. I don't want her, because she's super excited she just made partner. She's super excited she gets the stipend. I don't want her to go buy this car that's going to be like $1,000, and she just thinks because they're giving her like $600-700 a month that she can just, that it's not going to impact her down the long run.
It very well could. And as her future real estate agent, you might want to say, hey, I am congratulations, right? Again,
Yeah.
people want to, there's two primary things that people want. They want to look good, and they want to be right. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're speaking to somebody, you want to ask yourself, am I helping this person look good, or am I helping them be right? Right. So you don't want to go in there and burst her bubble that says, hey, don't buy a car this weekend, because she's probably been dreaming of this week and
And
making
she
a
has.
partner and all that, right? So I would say, listen, I know you're thinking about buying a home later, and there's a lot of different ways that this scenario could be viewed by a lender, and just make sure that you don't make a decision that will impact how much money you could borrow on the home. Strongly suggest that you speak to a lender about this before you commit.
Okay.
Right? And that way that it can be done in the appropriate way that's going to protect them. Right.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
whether she may not even be on the phone. It could be in the husband's name only. It could be in both of their names, or it could be in just her name. Right. So there's so many different, and they would probably look at the credit profiles and minimum payments and all this kind of stuff. Right. If she's a lawyer, she's probably got some debt attached to that.
His credit is not good. Hers is stellar. So I have a feeling the house is going to go under her name.
So don't assume all that.
I'm not going to, I know him, and I know
even more the reason why she needs to speak with a lender before
Okay.
she makes this decision.
Okay.
Because otherwise she will be living in her $1,000 a month car. Good God, $1,000 a freaking month.
Don't get me started.
What kind of car is that?
I think she's looking at like some sort of version of a Range Rover.
Jesus.
Most car notes are, if you get a new one, they're about $1,000 if you don't bring a lot to the table, at least.
I haven't gotten a car since I actually started making money. So
It's different.
my last car payment was $500.
I'm still driving. My Hyundai's been paid off for 1.5 years, and I've like, nah, it's going to stay that way for a hot minute.
Yeah, my wife and I's cars are paid off, and they're working, and I don't really care what you think about my car, and I'm putting money in different places.
I think the problem too is they made it sound like when she made this partner and they give her that stipend that they want her to drive a car that represents their firm.
Okay.
So I think it's also that social pressure.
Oh yeah. Well, if she doesn't do this wisely, she might be living in a neighborhood she's not going to feel all that proud of.
I want to, yeah.
Right.
The best way to word it, just speak to the lender. We haven't really talked about how you're doing this. I just want to make sure down the long run you're not,
Well, that we have to have an idea of what we're looking for.
yeah.
And you can't do that until she talks to a lender and you know what the price. And I like the way you say it. We figure out how much I can and how much I'm willing.
Yes, that's a
Because
good way
they're
to say
different
it.
things.
Very, very good way to say it. Now, I mean, it could be she could be making $200,000-300,000 a year. Her husband's making a couple $100,000 a year, and they want to buy a $500,000 house. A little car payment's probably not going to make a bit of difference.
Right.
Right. So we just don't know. I mean, I know people that are paying nearly $2,000 a month for student loans.
Yeah.
Right. So we just don't know what they're, you know, oftentimes, I hate to say it this way, and this is a huge generalization, but oftentimes, sometimes the richer somebody looks, the broker they
The
are.
poor they are.
Yeah.
No, the first time I realized that somebody was wealthy versus rich,
Yes.
I realized it really quick because they didn't show off like everybody else. But
Right.
I guarantee you there's more money in their bank account than anybody else.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so that way, so all the stuff that I've just discussed with you is to avoid an emergency at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night when they say write it up and you're like, what's closing cost? Right. So that way they know what to expect and we know what to expect. Now, remember that part in there that said how much the tax bill was?
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, we went shopping and the tax bill, instead of it being, let's say, was it $50 a month, and instead of the tax bill being $600 a month, or I'm sorry, $600 a year, maybe you found a place that was $800 a year. So then it's an extra $15 or $20 a month. So then the question is you kind of want to have an idea of like, how tight are we here? Like, if we go one more dollar, is that going to cause us not to be able to afford the home? Or is there a little flexibility with respect to taxes, right? And that's when it comes down to having that conversation with the lender that says, hey, tell me a little bit about how this is going. Are they being responsive? Are they being cooperative? Are they, answering your questions properly? How much have you looked into their file, right? Do we have any concerns whatsoever here? And let's say they do have some concerns and he says, yeah, if this guy like buys a tank of gas on the way to closing, the loan's not going to go through, right? I want to know that, because then I won't take him to the 525 house. So that was kind of your original question, Greta, or 250, I think you said, right? Can he or she pull off what is going to be required of them to buy that property, right? Now, then there's another question, which is, what does the pre-approval letter say? And this ties into what we just discussed, which is what can you and what are you willing to? I think we talked about this a day or two ago in the morning huddle, which is just because my pre-approval letter says 300 doesn't necessarily mean that I can't afford more. And just because it says 300 and I want to offer you 250 on a property doesn't mean I'm willing to pay 3. It just means I'm capable of financially paying 3. So I don't really believe that really works so much in or out of your favor. Like, the fact of the matter is I can afford this home, and here are the terms under which I'm buying it. I'm willing to buy it. So, I would say give them a pre-qualification letter for just a little bit beyond what they want to spend.
I've
Right.
been working with one of our preferred lenders, and she makes it for what we're going to offer.
That's what my lender did. We had to get like 22 different letters and they were
Yeah.
all in different amounts.
Every time
Well,
we made an offer, they change it.
Because
I know.
our real estate agent just told us, they were like, no, she was like, you need to have every time we offer home, it needs to be for what we offer.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, it could, as long as it's more, I think you're fine, right?
It was for the offering
Right, like, so for example, let's say the home's listed for 300 and you're gonna offer 290. Right, rather than getting an offer, right, rather than getting a pre-approval for 290, and then, 6 hours later, you're negotiating again, and now you're at 293, and you gotta go back and get another one, and then you're at 297, you gotta go back and get another one. I don't know that that's necessary, right? If you get in good with the lender, they can send you their thing on a Word document and say, hey, as long as we're up to 325, we're fine. Here's the document, you can change it if you need to, right?
So
So,
would you do the purchase price of the home versus?
you mean
it
the
goes
list
off of
price?
your- Yeah, the purchase price, or the list price, excuse
Yeah.
me,
Um,
or a little more than list.
I probably wouldn't do a little bit more than list, but I'd probably do a little bit more than I was willing to pay it initially, or willing
Well,
to
if we're
offer.
making a full price offer,
So I'd probably go a hair above list price, maybe
okay,
$10,000 or
gotcha.
$15,000.
Okay.
Okay. And they say, hey, your pre-approval says 350 and you're only offering 340. Say, okay, so now you know that I can afford the home.
Yeah.
So our valuation says that 340 is a more appropriate price. Are you interested in selling me the home for 340? You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So I think people get real caught up in that. I haven't seen enough evidence to say that that works one way or the other in a drastic way. But having to go back to the lender like 15 different times or 28 different times or something in a 2-day negotiation, it's a pain in the ass.
Our lender probably hated us then.
Well, I think it's a different environment now because you get one shot. And it's, you're in or you're out.
Well, we were in August. It wasn't much different.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, but they didn't, I guess they weren't frustrated enough to just go to your agent and say, look, they're good to like 350. So quit coming back to me for like a pre-approval letter for $2,000 more. Here's
Yeah.
a Word document. If you need to change it by $1,000, you change it.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? Okay.
Super
Does
helpful.
that make sense?
It is.
Yeah, no, this is very, very helpful.
Okay. What else is on your mind?
Let's see, the other one I have is, so I go from my one to my one, and they're good to about 800, but
Okay.
they don't want to spend anywhere near that, right?
Great.
Which is fine. But he's all about, working a dollar because he's my brother and we like to work our money and get the most out of it. So he wants to finance as much as possible,
As he should. That's
as he should. But I'm finding that weakens your offer if you, so how do you feel about, I'm
I don't
thinking.
know if I agree. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily.
Really?
Yeah. And what
Okay.
is he trying to do like 5% down or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can call the agent and say, hey, we're gonna finance buyer's super well qualified, money's so cheap right now, we're looking for a larger loan or larger loan amount. But I don't know that I would get too worried about that because you want to be reluctant to say like we got plenty of cash, because then they'll be like, okay, well then why are you bothering me about $100 electrician bill?
Well, I
Right.
was because thinking about just what we've experienced, that going in with a cash offer, just do a cash offer, makes it look good. Maybe they'll take us over the other 5,000 people who've offered, and then he can refi it after he closes.
You could always do that, but there's going to be more expense for that too.
There is, and I looked at, it's like 0.125% more interest rate, but it's still cheap money,
Yep.
given everything. But at this
So-
point, we need to get
so
him a house.
So he should sit down if he really wants to understand the difference of what that would look like. He needs to sit down with a lender that can walk him through the differences of those two scenarios. What
Okay.
happens if I buy it for cash and want to do a cash out refi? How long do I have to wait for that? How much is that going to cost? What's my rate going to be? And how is that different from financing it at 95% LTV initially? But you could always call the other agent and say, hey, you're going to see a 95% rate. We are in a position to put down more, but because money is so cheap, this is what our plan is. But don't see this and say, this guy can't afford this.
Half the time you can't get a hold of
Yeah,
agent right
that's
now.
my point, is that none of the agents are picking up because they know they've got offers. So why should I take a call? I'll just sit and pick the good ones that are coming in. It's really frustrating.
Yeah. The only way to handle that is to try to get, I suppose to try to get unique on how you try to reach them, right? So maybe you send them a video text or something. Hey, I'm real. I just don't want to be offer number 34. Okay. I want to let you know my buyer is well qualified. They are super cooperative. They are working with my favorite lender. No one has any hesitation about this transaction. Just want to remind you, we're doing right to request repairs. We're going to do a quick close. There's no appraisal contingency. I'm awesome. I cannot wait to work together. Right.
I hate videoing myself.
I
Now,
love it.
here's
It's
the other
fun.
thing is what is the biggest observation from what you just said?
Differentiate yourself.
Let me ask you a different way
Okay,
a different direction I wanted to go.
sorry.
Okay, let me rehash what we've learned today. Working with buyers is a bit frustrating because we have to do all this closing cost nonsense and spend our nights and weekends and holidays and yada yada showing places.
Oh, get a
We
listing.
finally find
Yeah, that's what it said. That's what they're
Yeah.
saying.
Get a listing.
let me make it a little tougher. Let me make it a little bit more obvious. Okay. So then we spend a ton of time writing them emails, setting up automatic searches, finding the perfect property to then find out somebody else is willing to pay more, right? Then having to calm them down, saying, oh, maybe now's not the right time to buy, right? It's so stressful. Maybe I'm worried about the stock market. Who's the president? Yada, 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 right? And then what is the other party doing? They're like,
It's there in Fields offers.
hey, photographer, just be there at 2. Painter, be there at 3. I'm going to be at the beach. And the auto email says highest and best Monday at 2 o'clock. And that's about when I'll get back from the beach. Right. So then you roll up to your desk at 2 o'clock. Your assistant's already organized all the stuff. And you're like, I think we should go with offer 17. What do you think? And guess who gets the same amount of money at the closing table?
That is annoying. Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm not telling you turn down every buyer in town. I'm telling you work with the best. Okay. If you are feeling to yourself, if this thought ever crosses your mind,
This is what we talked about this morning.
I was thinking to myself, didn't I say this to somebody this
That was
morning?
me.
Right. Okay. So if you're thinking to yourself, my gosh, this buyer is running me ragged, and I'm not really enjoying the fact that they're cranky and they're rude and they're a bigot and they never show up on time and they never listen to anything anyone tells them to do, right? What you should be thinking to yourself is, I kind of wish I had a better buyer, right? And sometimes agents will hang on to mediocre buyers or mediocre clients because they have a lack of prospects. And the reason why they have a lack of prospects is because they've done a lack of prospecting, right? This is what we talked about, right?
Yes.
So you got to ask yourself, hey, how aggressively am I filling up my database, and how aggressively am I filling up my pipeline? Because I don't want to work every night, and I don't want to work every holiday, and I don't want to be out of control. The people with control are the people that are taking the inventory and marketing it. The people that have no control are the ones that you're basically sitting by your computer all day wondering when the next listing is going to pop up, so you can run off to across town to show it and be like, oh shit, Rachel, that home in Woodstock came on the market. I'm gonna have to miss dinner again. You see what I'm saying?
Be great for my diet. Sorry, keep going. No, I'm kidding.
But you see where I'm headed?
Yeah.
It's not leads, buyers leverage. It's leads, listings leverage.
Yeah,
But that's this market right now.
that's any market.
Any market.
I would
No,
think.
any market for sure. Any
Yeah.
any market for sure. Now, if you have let's say it's a strong buyer's market, right? The trouble in a buyer's market is they're not sure if it's going to continue to fall, right? Meaning they're reluctant to pull the trigger, and they're wondering why the home they like is still available. You see what I'm saying?
Is there something wrong with it? The doubt factor. Yeah.
right? I remember like, it was like, okay, let's go look at these 17 homes and we'll pick our favorite 3 and we'll go back out next week and we'll pick our next favorite 3 and then we'll go about the next week and they'll all still be available. So, you know, it was like, when are you going to make a damn decision? Right? But I would rather have listings than buyers any day.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool.
All right, guys. I will download this thing and send it to you both. And as always, if you need me, just let me know.
Will you
Thank
send
you.
the, that worksheet,
URL?
one worksheet too?
Oh,
I
yeah,
can forward
I
it
will.
to you.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, bye. I'm about to lose.